All right, so get ready. We're diving deep today into intuition and hidden laws. You sent us this chapter from Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi. And wow, this chapter all about his guru Sri Yukteswar. It's going to make you rethink what's possible. Seriously.
It is fascinating how Yogananda's just living there with Sri Yukteswar at his hermitage in Puri, and he's seeing these incredible things, everyday life blended with these really profound spiritual insights. You get a glimpse of what it's like to be around a realized master and how these yoga principles actually play out.
Yeah, exactly. Like that story with the missing cauliflower. Yogananda is so proud of his garden. He's giving these perfect cauliflowers to Sri Yukteswar as gifts. But the next morning, one's gone. Turns out a crazy peasant, as he's described, just took it. But get this, Sri Yukteswar knew it was going to happen. The whole thing.
It's so intriguing how Sri Yukteswar knew, not just that it would happen, but when that peasant would show up. Even which cauliflower he'd grab. He explains it all by comparing the human mind to a radio.
So just like a radio, picking up a specific frequency. Out of all the noise and signals, Sri Yukteswar was tuned into the peasant's, desire for a cauliflower. Like he was receiving those thoughts.
Precisely. This story really gets you thinking, right? About that whole universal field of consciousness Yogananda talks about. Like, are we all connected through this invisible energy field where thoughts and emotions can be transmitted, received? It's a lot to ponder.
It is mind-boggling, for sure. Makes you wonder, could we all tap into that? We could focus our minds, like Sri Yukteswar.
Absolutely. And that brings us to this other fascinating concept Yogananda keeps highlighting, the power of will and intuition. Sri Yukteswar describes intuition as soul guidance, something that naturally comes through when the mind's calm. No distractions.
So like those hunches we get, could those be intuition trying to guide us? Is there more to those gut feelings than we realize?
It's definitely possible. Sri Yukteswar really emphasizes that strong will. It enhances our ability to focus, to discern those intuitive whispers. Think of a radio. It needs enough power to function, right? Our intuition, it's strengthened by the power of our will.
But even realized master, they're not always on, right?
Yeah.
There's that story where Yogananda's like, oh, use your intuition to find this lamp. But Sri Yukteswar doesn't. He even tells Yogananda to use his own intuition to find it.
That's such a crucial point. It reminds us that intuition isn't about fortune telling. Even someone as spiritually advanced as Sri Yukteswar, he didn't use his abilities for trivial stuff. It makes you think about respecting the sacredness of these gifts. What stands out to you about that story?
It's a good reminder. We can't expect anyone to have all the answers all the time. And it's not about using these powers for personal gain or just, showing off.
Exactly. It's about aligning with a higher purpose, which leads us to that incredible story of the cloud umbrella. Picture this, a religious procession. Under the scorching sun, Sri Yukteswar promises a cloud umbrella to shield his students.
And guess what? The rain starts and stops exactly when needed. Have you ever had something like that happen? Where a sincere desire just manifested in this unexpected way?
The story really illustrates that. When our intentions are pure and aligned with higher purpose, seemingly impossible things can happen. It hints at this harmony between human will and what Yogananda calls divine grace.
Okay, so we've got this mind as radio idea, the power of will and intuition, and now rain on demand. This chapter is full of surprises.
And we're just getting started. The next story dives into something so deeply rooted in Indian culture, the power of music. During a winter solstice festival, Sri Yukteswar, he could instantly tell if someone was singing off key and correct them, just like that.
So this is more than just having a good ear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In Indian tradition, music, it's not just entertainment, it's a spiritual practice, a way to connect with the divine. The ancient rishis, the sages, they recognize this deep connection between sound and consciousness.
That's where ragas come in, right? These melodic scales, they're linked to specific times, seasons, emotions. Man, it sounds complex.
It is indeed. Ragas are very carefully crafted to evoke particular states of being. They use specific combinations of notes and rhythms to create vibrations that actually influence our energy, our mood, even our spiritual awareness. It's not just random notes. Each raga has its own, you could say, personality and purpose.
It makes you think about the power of music in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Not just something we listen to, but it's something that can shift our consciousness. It's wild.
Precisely. And in the next part of our depth dive, we'll explore how Sri Yukteswar demonstrated this. His understanding of music as a pathway to spiritual transformation.
So, we're back. Still diving deep into those incredible Sri Yukteswar stories. From Autobiography of a Yogi, we were talking about music, right? How in Indian tradition, it's this, like, spiritual practice.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that always strikes me reading these stories is how Sri Yukteswar emphasizes the practical side of spiritual life, too.
Right. Like, he's not just off meditating in a cave all day.
No, not at all. He's involved. Like, even after that long festival day, all the preparations, cooking for everyone, unexpected guests showing up late, he's still there, calmly teaching Yogananda about overcoming, fatigue, fear of hard work.
It's a good point. Spiritual growth isn't about escaping the world. It's more about transforming how we relate to it, right?
Definitely. Like, we can overcome limitations like fatigue or fear through effort and selfless service. But it's not just about the serving, it's also about recognizing the divinity in everyone we meet. Remember how Yogananda describes it? Being beside his guru, he felt like he was beside a godlike guru.
It's a powerful image. Maybe we all have that divine spark inside, and by serving others, we're serving that spark too.
Precisely. And this idea of interconnectedness, it actually links back to that mind as a radio concept we were discussing. Sri Yukteswar, he explains thoughts as vibrations moving in the ether. And a trained mind, it can tap into those thought vibrations, just like a radio tuning in to specific frequencies.
So no magic powers. It's more like mastering the mind.
Yeah.
To perceive these subtle realities that are already there, that's pretty mind-blowing in itself.
It really is. And Sri Yukteswar's mastery, it allowed him to practically hear others' thoughts. Because of that incredible mental acuity he developed, he could even transmit his thoughts, like in that cauliflower story.
Which brings up a big question. If we can affect others through our thoughts, what responsibility do we have for them, for their quality, their intention?
That's such a good point. It's like, what if there's thought pollution? If we're putting out negative or harmful thoughts all the time, are we creating a kind of mental smog that impacts those around us? And then think of the opposite, cultivating positive, loving thoughts. Maybe we can create a more harmonious mental environment.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Makes you want to pay attention to what you're putting out there.
Exactly. And that actually brings us back to music as a spiritual practice. Sri Yukteswar, at the festival, instantly knowing if someone was off key. It wasn't just about having a good ear. He understood the power of sound, how it impacts consciousness itself.
Right. We were talking about ragas earlier, how each one's linked to specific times, seasons, emotions. It's complex.
It is. And Indian tradition sees music as this divine art form. The ancient rishis, the sages, they discovered this profound connection between sound and consciousness. Like, ragas aren't just random notes, they're carefully crafted to evoke certain states of being.
So each raga has its own energy, its own vibration. And by playing or even listening to a specific raga, we can shift our consciousness.
Wild. It is. The way those notes and rhythms combine, it creates these unique vibrations that affect us, our energy, mood, even our spiritual awareness. Mastering a raga. It takes more than technical skill, it takes intuition, understanding those subtle effects. The musician becomes like a conduit for these powerful sonic vibrations, creating a transformative experience, not just for themselves, but for everyone listening too.
It really makes you appreciate music on a whole other level.
Absolutely. And this understanding of interconnectedness, it's everywhere in this chapter. From thoughts and intentions to the vibrations of music, it speaks to a deep wisdom that Sri Yukteswar embodied in his life.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into the wisdom of Sri Yukteswar. We've been exploring some really fascinating stuff from this chapter you sent us, from Autobiography of a Yogi.
It's been quite a journey. The mind as a radio, the power of will and intuition, the divine science of music. Wow.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. And what really stands out to me is how Sri Yukteswar lived it. Like, he wasn't some, distant mystical figure.
Yeah.
He was involved in everyday life. Cooking, cleaning, teaching his students, interacting with the community.
Right. He was very present. And you can tell he had this, playful sense of humor, too.
Yeah, for sure. Like when he was teasing Yogananda about those late-night guests, shows that even enlightenment doesn't have to be serious all the time.
Definitely not. Humor keeps us grounded, reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously. But going back to that mind as radio concept, remember how Sri Yukteswar said science would eventually catch up to these hidden laws, these thought vibrations?
Do you think that's happening? Like, are we seeing that today?
I think so, yeah, in lots of ways. Think about all the advancements in neuroscience, quantum physics, even things like, everything we do with telecommunications. We're starting to understand how everything's interconnected on levels we couldn't have imagined, even a few decades ago.
So the idea that thoughts can travel, beyond our physical bodies, it's not so out there anymore.
No, not at all. And it makes you think, right, about the power of our intentions. If thoughts can affect others, even from far away, what responsibility do we have for what we're putting out there, the quality of our thoughts, our intentions?
It's a big one. It makes you wonder about the impact of things like prayer, meditation, even just like sending positive vibes to someone who's having a tough time.
Exactly. And it emphasizes how important it is to cultivate a strong will. Sri Yukteswar, he was really clear about that. A strong will is crucial for spiritual growth, for focusing the mind, for transmitting your thoughts effectively.
So it's not just about wishing for stuff. It's about actively directing our energy, our intention, toward what we want to create.
Precisely. And that connects to the idea of dharma, our purpose. When our will is aligned with our higher purpose, our actions, they become so much more powerful, more effective.
It's like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Maybe when our will is strong enough.
Yeah.
And aligned with our dharma, the universe itself helps us out, supports us in reaching our goals.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it brings us back to the story of the cloud umbrella. During that procession, Sri Yukteswar prayed for rain, and it came, because it was aligned with a higher purpose, protecting his students, helping them with their spiritual practice.
It's a good reminder that our prayers, our intentions, they're more likely to work when they're not selfish, when they're in service to something bigger than us.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of devotion, of surrender. We can't control everything, but we can trust in a higher power and let things unfold the way they're meant to.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. The mind as a radio, the power of will, the divine science of music, balance, humor, surrender. What's the one thing you hope people take away from all this, from exploring Sri Yukteswar's teachings?
You know, I think the most important thing is remembering that spirituality. It's not separate from our everyday lives. It's about weaving these principles into how we think, how we speak, how we act, every moment.
It's about living with intention, awareness, and feeling connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Beautifully said. And as you keep exploring these ideas, remember to approach it with curiosity, an open mind, and a playful spirit.
After all, like Sri Yukteswar showed us, even enlightenment can have a sense of humor. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.